Good, good. Hey, not to introduce too much controversy, but we were talking about our Catholic brothers and sisters and how we do, in fact, love them. Many Catholics are open to the prophetic. I was surprised to hear that. You were saying that they were open to the prophetic and to the supernatural, even sometimes more than our Protestant brothers.
Yeah, that's my experience through Central and South America, where there's much more widespread Catholicism. And essentially what I found, of course, is the door, we'll say the door of doctrine and theology is just much more wide open. And we would say it's too wide open. We don't like the idolatry, and we say the excess veneration of Mary or whatever. But the part that is nice to find is they really there's no trouble with the supernatural miracles. That's just part of even what makes a saint for them, is someone who has some evidence of the miraculous is what makes them a saint in their traditions. And so coming in as I've spoken to many political leaders in Central and South America, including the leaders of the nations, and being introduced as, I don't introduce myself, but if I'm introduced as a prophet, it doesn't throw them off, and
awesome.
they want to hear that, and they'll then introduce me to somebody else and call that too, and so it doesn't mess them up, because by and large, again, they're 90% Catholic, or that's 90% Catholic before the evangelical growth, which is, depending on what nation, some nations over 50%, but at least 10% in all nations. But yeah.
Yeah, and people don't know this. I'm 66 years old. When I was young, all we were taught was bad things about the Catholics. And of course, this is now 2021, and it's not that way. Of course, we don't venerate Mary to the degree, but on the other hand, we also do venerate Mary as the mother of Jesus, because even she prophesied that all nations will call me blessed. And so I've even said that if there are Protestants who refuse to call Mary blessed, you're not even fulfilling the prophecy that she said out of her own mouth, which is something that, we tried so hard not to be Catholic that we stopped blessing Jesus' own mother, and she said we would.
Yeah, there's no doubt that we have overreacted to many things, but that's one of them. There's no doubt in heaven that maybe Protestants are going to be surprised how well thought of Mary is. That was no little deal. That God in the flesh decided to come through her, and so in order to not be the venerators of Mary, we have diminished her to being worthy of not even a comment. And it's dishonoring, no doubt about it. It's dishonoring the way in general that we have approached our thoughts and what we're allowed to think of her.
That's interesting. And I had people that know me have figured out that I usually will just say what's on my mind. We didn't plan to hit this today, but we were talking about it off the air, and it was just fun conversation. I mentioned how this only happened once, but when I was in Connecticut, a sister, I suppose you call her a nun, in a full white habit, came up to me and asked if I would prophesy over her, which I was happy to do. And people will say, well, people have written to me every time we talk about, if we mention the name Catholic, they kind of rip into me like, why do you act as if we're not? And I'm not saying anything other than the fact that just like Protestants, many are saved and many are not, and Catholics, many are saved and many are not. It just depends on if you receive Jesus Christ as your Savior.
Yeah. And, heard me tell the story here before when it was coming to my mind right now that the mayor in Saposoa, Peru, who was Catholic, first time I met with him, and I began to tell him that God's going to intervene in the economy of his city and his region. And I began to tell him, there's going to be a touristic waterfalls discovered and the thermal springs here. And there's going to be 2 salt mines and a zinc mine and a silver mine, and then a touristic lost city of the Incas and different things like that. And when I got done sharing all that with him and asked if I could pray with him, he said yes. And then his comment was, "I'm having this day declared a historic day in the city."
Wow.
Right. I'm going to put up a thing in City Hall saying that you are an illustrious guest of the city, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And so him being Catholic, he didn't have trouble at all with receiving a prophetic word and the Lord saying something. And then it all, of course, happened within 18 months. All
So very cool. Wow. Wow. Well, and we owe it to our Catholic brothers and sisters because of the whole entire pro-life movement. Were it not for our Catholic brothers and sisters, we would not be where we are, but they have been so strongly pro-life. I think Amy Coney Barrett is Catholic, but I think several others are as well. I don't really know my judges that well to know who all is, but we owe a lot to them for pro-life. I think Alveda King, who is the niece of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., she is part of, if not, I don't know if she's the head of or just strongly part of Priests for Life. So that's a really good thing.